Every day we see more tents under bridges, more families living out of cars. And while the problems seem insurmountable, the solutions are simpler than you think. We share the real stories and the real solutions of homelessness, what works, what doesn't, and how communities like ours can do better. I'm Baron King, and this is Give Me Shelter.
Well, hello, and thanks for tuning in again to Give Me Shelter. We're really excited about this episode called Creating Financial Structure and Security. In the other episodes, we've been spending a lot of time talking about the forces that are in play that are driving and causing this homeless crisis in our country. But in this episode, we're going to spend much more time talking about how to fix some of the problems, some of the solutions, because we really want this discussion to not only help people understand the forces that are causing homelessness, but also what can be done to make this problem manageable. And that's what we're here for. So just a little bit, if you've tuned in before, you've kind of heard me talk about the landscape that we're facing, the headwinds that are ahead of us. And they include things like a reduction in housing vouchers. Also, several federal safety net programs have been rolled back, such as Medicaid, Veterans Administration benefits, food stamps, you name it. A lot of things that people depend on are being rolled back. Also, inflation is still a problem. And the big overarching problem is the disparity between property value increases and wage growth. If you remember from other episodes, since 2005, property values have increased 78%, and wages have only increased 9% over that time. So year by year, it becomes more and more difficult to find an affordable place to live. So I'm really excited today because joining me in the studio is Chat Foundation's Chief Program Officer, Dr. Traci Hefner. Traci, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Traci has earned her PhD from Clemson University in International Studies with a focus on gender-based violence. She holds a graduate certificate in Women and Gender Studies as well as a Master of Social Work degree. She is also a licensed master social worker in Tennessee. And so when Traci joined Chat Foundation, I think she was over 2 programs, and now that is ballooned to 13 programs. Why? Well, our organization believes that to effectively address homelessness, you have to identify gaps in services and find strategic ways to assist people where they have real needs. And we've done a really good job of that in the last 4 or 5 years of identifying programs that need to be started, ways to help people. So, Traci, you heard my introduction and you heard me talk about the changing landscape.
Yeah.
What are you seeing from your vantage point?
Well, we're seeing a lot of changes, which is making it more and more difficult for us to help the people that we're here to help. And so that's making it really hard. As you know, we're a housing first program, which means we work on getting people into housing and then begin to work on all those challenges that brought somebody into homelessness. Right now, with the housing crisis that's happening in Chattanooga, it's very, very hard. And last year, I think last year around this time, the Chattanooga Housing Authority put a freeze on homeless preference vouchers, which we actually needed to get people into housing in the community. So we don't have those. We're lucky within the Chat Foundation that we actually have housing. Our housing is always full, and that's hard because we can only house up to 27 households. And so there are so many people out there that need assistance and not enough housing at this point in time to be able to help them.
So, housing vouchers have been frozen for about a year now
Yeah.
in Chattanooga.
Yeah.
And we recently learned that there's some increasing restrictions on it. They're not
Yes.
portable anymore.
Nope.
If you leave a location that has project-based vouchers, they can't take that benefit with them, so they're on their own. So what has that done in terms of impacting the time necessary for people to get into housing?
It's made it really hard. We have our McClellan Shelter for Families, which is a 90-day program. We get families in there. We work with them to try to find housing, trying to find employment. We've gone from being able to get people into housing within 90 days to sometimes taking over 150 days at this point. If we can do that, we've had families in there for 6 months at this point in time. So it's making it really hard to help people to move towards self-sufficiency.
Yeah. So these shifts, we saw them coming about a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
We weren't blindsided by this, but when your number one tool to house people is taken away, you have to really start sharpening the other tools, right?
Right.
And so one of the things that we've done at Chat Foundation is focused a lot of attention on how do we help people generate income,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Income generation is going to be critical since these vouchers are no longer available. And we don't
Absolutely.
know how long they're going to
We
be
don't.
unavailable. So we're going to jump into that. We're going to start talking about some of the programs and how we help people reach self-sufficiency without some of the tools that they would have had available to them 2 years ago.
Right.
Yeah. So your work at Chat Foundation uses a trauma-informed approach
Yeah.
to working with individuals experiencing homelessness. What does that mean?
That's a big term for the stuff that we do. So we really focus on a trauma-informed approach, meaning that we really have to build trust with folks. We are working with a population that has a lot of trust that has gone away, trust within family systems, trust within systems. And so our job is to build that trust. That means that we have to do what we say we're going to do and mean what we say. That's really important. We also have to create a safe environment for folks. So the last thing that we want to do is re-traumatize somebody when they come
Right.
to see us. So we want to make sure that they feel safe, that they can trust us, and we work collaboratively with them. And that's what's really unique with social work is that we are helping someone to build their lives, and we're developing these plans with them and we're talking with them about, okay, these are the steps you're going to take, but I also have resources, I have connections, I can do some steps too. And then together we can work on helping people to move forward, which is really important. And that really empowers people too. We also take a look at their strengths. One of the first assessments we do when we get somebody is we do a strength based assessment. So we understand what their strengths are and we focus on those rather than what their needs are. And that's really important because that, again, helps to build that trust and helps to empower people. So those are really important. And we not only do that in practice with our clients, but we also do that with our staff. So I have a great team of people that I have to be aware of how they're feeling and the work that they're doing because this is high burnout work. So I do reflective supervision. So people come in, you can talk about how tough things are, we can work through problems. Again, I have to create that safe place and build that trust with the staff as well. So again, our policies have to be the same thing, trauma informed. So I think that makes us unique in some of the things that we do, but we have such high quality people that are working on this. It makes me really proud to work
Yeah.
with the team that we have. Yeah.
So I think when the average person hears the word trauma, they
Yeah.
probably think assault
Ah,
or something,
yeah.
what I used to call capital T trauma.
Sure.
But trauma comes in a lot of various more subtle ways,
Yeah.
whether you're an adult or a child,
Yeah.
things that happen. Can you talk a little bit about around the idea of financial wellness,
Ah,
how
yeah.
this idea of maybe lowercase t trauma works its way into,
Sometimes it
uh,
can be
yeah,
big T.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. So financial trauma is something that we are really focused on at the Chat Foundation. We're building a financial wellness program that is focused on trauma informed principles. And so I think first we have to distinguish between financial stress and financial trauma. I think all of us have financial stress at some point in time in our lives. Sometimes we have a pipe that burst, right?
right.
Because of cold weather. You may have a car that dies, car issues. There may be a medical emergency. These are normal life things that all of us basically encounter. What happens with financial trauma is that that's different. It's rooted deeper. It's more severe, chronic, so lasting longer periods of time. It can be historic and it can be generational. Lots of times when we talk about trauma from a physical or a sociological standpoint, that maybe there was trauma in my family, then that gets passed down to the next generation. And we see that a lot in the work that we do. But also, that can happen around finances. How was money discussed in your household? Was it discussed in your household? What were your coping strategies around that? All these things can actually create financial trauma. So I want to ask you a question real quick.
Sure.
In terms of finances, were finances actually talked about in your household?
No, no, they weren't. I do remember in high school, I was fortunate enough to have a personal finance class. I don't remember anything from it,
That's great.
but I know that very few schools teach
Right.
personal finance anymore, and it leaves a lot of people completely unaware of basic things such as interest rates and credit
Right.
scores and things like that.
Absolutely. Same thing. My household, I remember my dad started a company and he said, we need to tighten our belts. I had no idea what that meant, right? My life really didn't change. And so that was the only thing that we ever talked about, tightening our belts. So then I become a young adult. I get out there. I really don't understand my finances. This happens with so many
Yeah.
people in the United States, right? And one of the things with our population is that, again, this happens with them. They don't have that financial foundation in order to build on. And that's one of the things that we want to change. We want to make sure that they have those tools in their toolkit.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, this is a good segue into this one program that I want to talk about, and it's our effort to improve people's financial literacy.
Yeah.
So, can you talk about the program that we've created around financial literacy,
Yeah.
what you've learned, where it's going, all those types of things?
Yeah, absolutely. So, first of all, again, it's trauma informed. And so, like you were saying, that wasn't something that was talked about in your household. We want to start with that. We want to start with what are the narratives that you have around money? And we want to be able to kind of help to change those narratives. A lot of our folks, again, there were kind of negative coping skills around this. And so, what we want to do initially is talk about what those narratives are and how we can kind of start to change those narratives to more positive. Lots of times people don't even want to talk about finances. It's scary. But like anything, if you learn the tools for it, it gets less scary. And so that's what we want to do. We also want people to understand where you are
Yeah.
financially. What kind of debt do you have? What is your credit score? Most of our folks don't understand that. And it makes it really hard, especially when you're talking about getting somebody housed in
Yeah.
Chattanooga. You don't know what your credit score is. They're going to do a credit check. The things just makes it more and more difficult. So we want people to have the basic skills to be able to go, okay, this is where I am right now, but I can move forward. And then we're going to give them tools on how do you move forward.
Right.
And one of the first things is understanding where you are and then just kind of creating a new narrative about this is where I want my future to be and these are the ways I need to get there.
Yeah.
So really important.
So, in your work with people at Chat Foundation, what are you finding as far as thoughts about personal finances and maybe some of the behaviors that you've noticed?
Yeah,
Um,
people don't wanna talk about it. Yeah, they're like, "Oh, I'm poor," "I'm poor," or, "I have no idea. I don't know how much debt I have." Then sometimes they get surprised. We had actually a woman who's living in our housing who got a letter from a landlord from, I think, 4 years ago saying that she owes $4,000 in back rent. She said she had no idea that she owed this money. So and that's a problem, right? Not understanding, not
yeah,
checking your credit history, not looking at what debts you have. So helping people to understand that those are the things. But also our staff. Our staff also, so this program is going to be for our staff as well, so that our staff have better tools. So then when you're working with somebody that you'll understand how to do this as well. So I think that's really important.
yeah, that's really great. One of those the I was fortunate enough last week to go to the Union Gospel Mission in
Yeah,
Memphis,
yeah.
and one of the services they provide is assistance with tax filing.
Ah,
And what they've said is that a lot of the people that come
that's
to them
great.
maybe haven't filed taxes in 2 or 3 years,
Yes.
but they've been working different
Yeah.
jobs, and most of them find that there's money available to them in tax refunds that they didn't know they had.
Yeah.
So, I think it's simple things that we don't realize exactly what the problems are, where the misunderstandings are, and we then hidden in that are some benefits that if we just
Absolutely.
address those.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
So,
exciting.
talk to us a little bit about this program and how individuals, what do they learn? What steps do they go through during this training?
So, one of the main things that they're going to be learning is again where they are currently. So, they're going to be able to learn how to find out what your FICO score is. That's really, really important, right? In terms of when if you're just trying to find an apartment, knowing how to look up their credit history so that they can see what the debts are. So, making sure, kind of getting that ostrich, your head out of the sand, knowing exactly where you are, making it less scary, and then helping them to develop a plan to move forward. So, We're going to help people to know where they are, and then they're actually going to have to be developing some goals. So, this is the debt I have. What this is the goal I'm going to have. I'm going to reduce this debt. If it's the apartment, I'm going to reduce this debt, break it down to how they're going to do that. What are the timelines? So, it's very, very specific in terms of how things are going to be done. That just helps people. Then you have something tangible that you're going to be able to go, okay, this is what I need to do, and then start moving toward it. A lot of our folks come to us and they don't even have a checking account. So sometimes, I mean, if your listeners, it's just sometimes it's the very basic things. Getting a checking account, opening up a savings account, those basic things, understanding that you need some emergency savings, how to save some money, how to actually maybe put your some of your credit cards or whatever on auto pay. We know one of the number one thing to developing good credit is paying your bills on time. If you can just start by doing that,
Yeah.
those little steps can really help you. So those are the things that we want to make sure that they're knowledgeable of and can start to move forward on.
That's really good. You know, I remember we took a deep dive into last year into the folks that we were helping with the eviction prevention program to try and find out how many individuals that we're helping are rent burdened.
Yeah.
And if you don't remember, rent burdened is spending more than 30% of your monthly income on your rent or mortgage. And it was an astounding, what, 85%, I think.
Hey, yeah,
I can start to understand how people can get into a challenging rent
absolutely.
burned experience if they really don't know what is a reasonable amount to pay,
Yeah.
right?
You desperately want a home too. And so if, someone's not going to do a background check and they're offering you an apartment at a higher rent, and lots of times people will take that. We want to avoid that from happening because our goal is to keep people housed. That's
Yeah,
really important. But we know the average cost of an apartment in Chattanooga, one bedroom is 1400. The average cost of a two bedroom is $2,200. You can be working. As a matter of fact, we had a family that was working in our McClellan shelter for families. They had a full-time job, so they were working at Target, I think making $15 an hour. When you're making $15 an hour, social work math, and then you're working full-time, I think that you're gonna be making probably about $31,000 a year, right? To get a one-bedroom apartment, you would have to make about $50,000 a year because most of the landlords want you to have 3 times the income for the
sure.
rent. So what do you do? Makes it really, really hard. And people don't understand that. So helping them to understand that the difficulties in terms of finding a place and what you have to have in place in order to do
Right.
that. Yeah,
Just to help them understand how to create a range to know where to look,
that's exactly right.
right?
Yeah, yeah. And there's not a lot of apartments out there that are lower end, so it makes it really
No,
hard.
in the paper this morning, a study was just done saying that Chattanooga lags behind most other cities in Tennessee for the development of affordable housing.
There
And
you
so,
go. There
yeah,
you go.
yeah.
Makes it really hard for our folks. Yeah.
So, if we can roll a lot of people through this program, if we can get people engaged in this and writing their own plan for financial wellness,
Yeah.
what kind of outcomes are you hoping to see? How do you think this can make a difference?
We think that this would actually be really positive, that we're going to have the majority of our families will be able to move forward. And a key component of this is case management. You can't just go in and do a training and assume that people are going to take those skill sets and move forward. We are lucky enough that we have case management for our families. In our Pathway to Housing program, we do intensive case management services. So, people going through this program, they're going to meet with the case manager. The case manager is going to be working on that plan. That's going to be part of their plan. So, there's going to be going a monthly supervision over this plan that is going to help people to move forward. And our McClellan Shelter for Families, we are lucky enough that we have a memorandum of understanding with First Things First, so that when people leave the shelter, they actually have case management services for up to a year. This is really, really important because as those folks get that training, then the case management again can continue with that to make sure that there is success. So a training alone isn't going to do it, but the training in combination with case management services, there's a higher likelihood of success, which is really important.
And how important is it for people who leave the McClellan shelter, where they're getting a lot of direct support right all around them to continue getting support for a year after they leave. How important is that?
It's really important because, again, going from homelessness into housing, I think the average person would think, oh, that's great. Everything is okay now that you're housed, right? Lots of times we see that that can be the start of some issues because this worthiness comes up too. Am I worthy of this place? Am I worthy of this life? All the traumas that led to this to begin with, all these things need to be dealt with. And so I think that we know that having case management follow up is really important because if there's little blips along the way, that case manager can help that family problem solve.
Right.
It's not creating dependency, it's helping to create self-sufficiency, and that's really important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've found too that once people get to adulthood, their style of learning tends to change a little bit. Like when you tell a small child a fact,
Yeah.
they'll buy it, they'll believe it, they'll run with it. You tell an adult something, and they'll say, "Okay, sure." But from my experience, it takes some experiential reps
Yeah.
with a concept. So
Absolutely.
I would think that just giving them a training, that's a starting point.
Starting point.
But the behavioral part
Exactly.
has to be continue, be
Yep.
supported, be reinforced. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, this and the curriculum that we're developing, I mean, it's coming from the Center for Financial Social Work, and this is an evidence-based, trauma-informed curriculum, and it actually looks at changing using kind of a cognitive behavioral approach. So you change somebody's thinking, you hope to change somebody's behaviors, but this is over time. It's not something that's done quickly, right? And so then that's the being able to work with a family a year into a year is really important because then that'll really help to change their cognitive thinking and then also their behaviors.
Yeah.
So just that constant, steady looking in at that family and supervising, really important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so when I talk about our organization identifying gaps in services, we started realizing that people not understanding how to use money, how to manage personal finance, that's become a huge gap. So I'm really excited
Yeah.
about what we're going to do with this.
Can I say one more thing around that?
Oh, please.
I think that it's also really exciting. I think one of the next steps that we really want to do is add children into this. We want to have more of a two-generational approach, right? Because what we often see is generational poverty. And so being able to teach kids as well is going to be really important. And then the families can have conversations around money. And then that can be something, even the kids' plans can be put into our treatment plans. And so the whole family is
really
being
great.
worked on. So that's really exciting. I read an article just the other day, I think it was in CNBC, and it was talking about why a parent should never say we can't afford that. And it was really interesting because this helps to keep that myth going about not ever being able to afford anything, and it stops a conversation. So not saying that, but saying to a child, because kids always want something, right? But saying to them, okay, if you want this, let's talk about what you would need to do that. Let's talk about savings. How much would you have to save a week? How much do you need to earn? So that's an opportunity to really start to have those conversations around money rather than stopping those conversations.
You're right, because saying we can't afford that, it does shut down the conversation instead of saying, well, are there things that we can eliminate from our monthly expenses that would give us the money to be able to do this? And what would we have to do? Maybe it's earn more, maybe
Yeah.
it's spend less.
Good conversations can come out of that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, not just tighten our belts.
That's great.
Sorry, Dad.
Well, that's all the time we have for this one today, but this conversation is going to continue. We're going to have a second episode of this where we're going to be talking about other things that we're doing to provide financial security for the people we serve. And so that involves workforce development and microlending and some other topics. So I hope you enjoyed this. If you have any questions, comments, please don't hesitate to reach out to us at info@chatfoundation.org. We'd love to hear from you. If you have a topic that you think we should discuss, please put that in there. Always love to hear what people are thinking about these topics. Thanks and have a great day.
Thanks for listening to Give Me Shelter. If you made it this far in the episode, I invite you to share with at least one person today, because change happens one conversation at a time. I'm Baron King. We'll see you next time.